Hi there, it's Brad Turville here, and it is Thursday at 12 p.m. and welcome to this week's episode of TurvilleTV, coming to you every week, talking all things business, financing, and investing. And so, can you believe this is already episode number 7? So it's 7 weeks down of TurvilleTV, where we've covered a range of topics from personal to business to financing and investing. And today the topic is about working smarter, not harder. This not only is going to apply to business owners, it's especially going to apply to business owners, but this is also going to apply to you if you don't own a business, but you might be an employee or you might be an investor. I think the philosophy of working smarter and not harder can just apply to life in general, looking after your own investments, looking after your own career and your career progression, or maybe how you act as work as an employee, maybe as a manager, as a leader, and where you want to take things, but especially in business where you're trying to build the enterprise, you're going to create awareness, you're trying to convert a lot of that interest into sales, you're thinking smarter about how we deliver our service or deliver our products, about partnerships, about building your team, about raising funds, about investing. I think the philosophy of thinking more modern and thinking smarter gives you an outcome of 1 + 1 = 3, as opposed to 1 + 1 = 2 for the same amount of effort. I think an important consideration in working smarter, not harder, is especially in business, but also in your career, that in the early days, you're probably going to need to work smarter and harder. And the reason is at the moment, you might be working harder, but not smart. And you can't always just flip it instantaneously to working harder, not smarter, to working smarter, not harder. There needs to be time for implementation and testing and putting new processes in place, or new team members in place, or perhaps firing and rehoming some clients, or changing pricing, or changing products. And change does take time, and there is an element of testing. So I guess the aim is always to be operating in a way and be effective, and to have a business established whereby you are working smarter, not harder, but an expectation and an understanding that to be able to get there, that's the aspirational place. To be able to get there, you're probably going to need to keep working harder, but we can start to work smarter. And if the aim for you is not to work as hard, or to have some freedom of time, or to have some freedom of mind, you're going to have to tail back the working harder side, which we can do by changing business models, by simplifying things, by reducing, or perhaps by building a team to delegate to, or putting managers in place so you don't have to manage that team, or put a general manager in place so you're not dealing with all the fires and all the running around in the office and making sure cash is coming in and people are being paid, employees are being paid, and the client's complaining, and you've got a risk of losing a big client, and then this happens and then that. General managers are great for that particular problem. But starting to think a little bit smarter, but also having the mindset of being open to some new ideas. Okay, just because you've done it the same way forever, just because everyone else does it a particular way, just because our industry does things this way, doesn't mean you need to do it that way. Okay, just because someone else does it doesn't mean you need to do it. Just because all your competitors or your friends in the industry do it a particular way doesn't mean you need to do it. In fact, there's probably a lot of value in you to do it. The only reason everyone else in an industry does things similar to everyone else in the industry is because that's how everyone else in the industry is doing it. It's like this roundabout. You get in there and everyone's following everyone. there tends to not be a lot of new ideas or new ways of working smart introduced, because there's an excuse or a feeling that, well, that's just not how we do it. Well, that's just an assumption. Okay, what if you ought to be the first person? Or what if this is the breakthrough that you need? Or what if this is what the industry needs? Someone just needs to take charge and run with it. So it's definitely about a mindset, but being open. And I think in any business or even in your career, you need to be open to new ideas. It doesn't mean you need to do anything about it. But it's being open-minded. We're going to be looking at a book today, and it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that plays into the philosophy of not only thinking smart, but also thinking effective. I can reflect on, in my earlier days in business, if we look at effectiveness and efficiency, effectiveness is doing the right things. Efficiency is doing things better. I probably got a little bit distracted by the efficiency side of things, so making sure things were done efficient. So we had a very clean and smooth operation, but we hadn't reached certain goals because I'd been too focused on oiling the machine and not being effective on getting towards the target. Even if that meant things weren't super efficient, we'd still hit the targets, and then we could look to become more efficient. We focused the other way around, which was becoming more efficient, so we didn't hit targets. Now that then means you've got a better running organization, but to think, okay, well, if you're now efficient and you want to grow, shouldn't that be better? Not always, because sometimes to grow, things need to break and change and be challenged. A little bit like the saying, to make a cake, you need to break a few eggs. Well, that's like in a business. If you've got a smaller business and you want to grow, you sometimes need to break a few eggs. And then a good example of that is the people that are with you at the start of the business are not always the people that are there milestones down the line. So it's sometimes due to capability, sometimes not a fit anymore. Sometimes it was very intimate and family orientated at the start. And as it grows, it needs to be a little bit more corporatized and structure and so on in place, and that's just not going to work for it. But it's just understanding that that's just part of the journey. And so a great element to have in place, I just think, in life is around this being open-minded. So we're going to look at the 7 habits of highly effective people. But to preface that before we jump in, is there's a great book out there called Principles by Ray Dalio. Great book, fantastic book. In fact, there's a great 30-minute little animated video on YouTube summarizing the book. It's really, really good. I've watched it a couple of times before, and Ray Dalio built essentially one of the greatest hedge fund managers of all time. Hedge funds are essentially where rich people invest their money, and then they take that and go and invest it for them to make even more money. And Ray Dalio is one of the best of all time. And so he's got, one of his principles is being radically open-minded. So just being open to ideas, even open to ideas where you think that's so out there, that idea. Not shutting it down, going, that's way too out there, I'm not even going to think about it, I don't even want to hear what you have to say. It's coming from a place of, I'm going to be so open-minded that I'm going to hear you out and I'm actually going to consider it. Even though it's crazy, I'm going to be out there, because that's how you tend to make big things happen. To give you an example that everyone will know, look at Elon Musk, with what he's done with the Boring Company, with Tesla, with SpaceX. I mean, even what they did with PayPal sounded crazy back in the day. But look at what they've done recently with SpaceX. He is radically open-minded. And so being open-minded opens you up to new things that you may not have thought of before. If you've got certain problems or challenges or things that you want to achieve that you haven't achieved, there's generally something missing there, because if you knew how to do it or how to do it better, you would already have it, or you'd already be doing it better. So we've all got blind spots. That's what we should expect. Everyone's got blind spots. Me, you, everyone else out there. But secondly, we've got our own values and beliefs. We're not always super open-minded, and we can get sort of stuck in the nitty-gritties of business, busy doing the doing. And so we want to be looking at working on the business, okay, and being open to some new ideas on perhaps, hey, I know I've done this for 20 years. Maybe there's a better way I could do it. And you know what? I probably could have done it better for the whole 20 years. But there's no DeLorean that we can jump in today and go back. All you can do from here is decide, would I like to be more open-minded? Would I like to entertain some more ideas? And might I take some of those insights and ideas and distinctions and look to make some changes and do some tests in my business? So I thought a great book to flick through. I would suggest you read it, but I'm going to give you a quick overview now. I was coming up with some ideas, and I thought, you know what, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is already a great framework. I've got it on my must-read list. I would suggest you should have it on your must-read list. If you're another advisor out there, I would be suggesting that you suggest your clients read a book like this, because you don't learn these things at university, at school. The only way you'd learn to become highly effective is if you have a close association or a mentor or an advisor or a manager who is highly effective and lives and breathes it and is great at teaching and instilling these values in you. Not everyone has all of that. So if you don't, a book like this is going to give you some great insight. So let's jump into it and have a bit of a look. So this is the book here. There's different covers and so on of it. But if you go to your favorite book place like Amazon or Booktopia or wherever you buy your books from, whether it's a hard copy or an ebook and so on, I would suggest you add it to your list. As you can see, the book is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's written by Dr. Stephen Covey, who unfortunately has passed away. But it is a timeless book. So in essence of keeping today's episode of TurvilleTV a bit shorter, but punchier, I'm going to show you the 7 habits and speak to each of them. And I want you to be open-minded, and I want you to consider all of them and maybe reflect on which of these habits do you think in your situation deserves a little bit more attention. Because the topic of work smarter, not harder, is something I've spoken about for a very long time and something I believe in. But it's also the sort of thing where I could run a whole day workshop. I could probably run a whole week workshop on this. Something like the 7 habits of highly effective people. You could spend a whole day workshop on each of the habits. So you could go very deep and very thorough. Today, I'm just trying to suggest and position some different modern smart ideas just to get you thinking and perhaps activate some thoughts that are in the back of your mind that you know are there, that you just haven't given them the attention that they deserve. So let's jump into it. The first habit here is be proactive. Sounds pretty obvious, isn't it? But is that always the case, or do you tend to be more reactive? So when we look at proactive, are you on the front foot? Are you asking for things? Are you just putting them in place and trying and testing and running with it? Or are you being reactive? Are you reacting to circumstance, or just circumstance dictating where things are taking you? An idea under be proactive that I always believe in is ask and you shall receive. So pick up the phone, send an email, send a letter, ask for the thing, or ask for the partnership, or ask for the client, or ask someone to buy from you, ask someone to come and work with you, or ask someone to pay your long outstanding invoice. Be proactive about it. Don't just sit back. A lot of the times I see, just to pick one aspect of business, which is cash flow, a lot of businesses have got poor cash flow. The reason they have poor cash flow a lot of the time is because they're not proactive about improving their cash flows. The biggest problem is that they're doing work and they're invoicing their clients. Their clients are just very slow to pay. How would you improve that? Don't be reactive. Don't let clients take a long time to play and then you react by getting upset about it. Be proactive and get on the front foot and call them up, email them, set the expectation, have them sign off on engagement letters, offer multiple payment methods, put them on payment plans, look at putting fee funding in place. Can they pay by credit card? Ask for a percentage up front. Ask them to pay the whole thing up front. There's so many ideas that you could entertain there. You just need to be proactive. So think about proactive in your own life. You know, if you want to lose some weight, if you want to get fit, if you certain things that you want to achieve, you can be reactive. You can do nothing. And remember, doing nothing is a choice. So if we look at the choices here, you might say, well, I could be proactive or I could be reactive. I would say, well, there's actually a third. You can choose to be neither as well. So doing nothing and choosing to do nothing or choosing not to choose is a choice in itself. Okay, you've decided I'm not going to do anything or I'm not going to think about it. That's a choice. We can always reflect on that and decide, is that choice best serving me? Okay, I like the idea of being objective driven. What are we trying to achieve from this? And then what are the things that I need to do? So being proactive, there's always a way to do the things that you want, regardless of whether you perhaps have limited resources. Okay, that's a great excuse. Limited resources. Don't have the time. I don't have the knowledge. I'm not good looking enough. I didn't go to that school. I don't have the funds to do it. I don't have a large enough client base. I don't insert the thing that you've got. If you were proactive, the way you would approach it, being proactive is a mindset. The way you would approach it is, well, who else has got the money that I could partner with? Who else has got the good looks that I could partner with that could be the face of the business? Who do I know that I could partner with that went to the school that will give me the access? So being proactive and partnering in a range of different ways you can partner to get access to time, to money, to endorsement, to promotion, to a network, to a celebrity or an influencer. Be proactive, pick up the phone, ask. The second habit here, I talk about this one a lot. In fact, I ran a training not too long ago on TurvilleTV called, just to reflect on it, I'm having a look back here, Make Your Business More Attractive to a Buyer. It was 2 weeks ago. So it was week 5 of TurvilleTV, Make Your Business More Attractive to a Buyer. And on that episode of TurvilleTV, we're talking about getting a business saleable, investor ready, de-risking it, improving the value, and so on. That's the end. Okay, selling the business is the end. But what if you were to begin with the end in mind? What does this need to look like? What are the numbers? What's the size of team? What products and services are we going to offer? How are we going to price things? What do I want to sell it for? At what point in time? Who are we going to sell it to? And how can I start to put things in place? But beginning with the end in mind, you're by default setting goals. You want to sell a business for $2 million by the year 2030. Great. You've now created, we're here, and then I want this to happen. Or if you decide I want to build a business that pays me $200,000 a year where I work 20 hours a week, 45 weeks in a year. Great. You are beginning with the end in mind. And on that, you can start to put processes and measures and people and processes in place to make that come alive. A lot of people get in business and they'll tell me they got in business because 1, they don't want to work for someone, and 2, they want to make more money, and 3, they want to have freedom. But you're now working for yourself, so you're your own boss. Are you making the money that you wanted to make? And number 3, have you got that freedom of time and mind or not? I don't always see it. Perhaps you've got it, but a lot of the time I don't see it. So what you want to start thinking about is, what does the end look like? What do I want from this? How should it be serving me? And then we work backwards and we can start to put some changes in place to start moving before it. So always begin the end in mind. If you are putting a partnership in place, cool, what does this look like? If you are hiring a team member, if you're bringing on a client, if you're just looking at your life and going, right, well, I'm 37 years old, What does the rest of my life look like? What are the things that I want? What are some things that I want to achieve? Next, put first things first. So put some order and structure and hierarchy to those things that you want and need to do. There's probably going to be some things in there that aren't the most fun things to do. Okay, let's give a good example. If you're a little bit older and you need to go and get some health checkups and they're perhaps a bit invasive and are not a whole lot of fun, it's probably not on your top of the list. But is it one of the first things that you should probably do? Yes, probably. Yeah, you can't go and get more health. Your health is one of the most important things to you in your entire life. But in business, there's also other things. Now, being an accountant, I'm a little bit biased, but I understand the importance of having clean numbers and regular reporting and keeping on top of your compliance and all the things that you need to do and you know that you should probably be doing. But is that always first on your list? I don't always see that as first on your list. And hey, there may be a couple of other things that should be before it, but should first things go first? Yeah, they should, regardless of whether you love them or not. It comes down to that idea of breaking a few eggs to bake the cake. You need to, before you eat the cake, you need to break the eggs. That's just how it is. That's the process. So putting first things first is, a simple exercise there is looking at all the things that you need to do and then putting some order to it. Even if you took the idea of, here's 50 things I need to do, what if you were to select 5 of them and they could be the only 5 that you could do? Let's just hypothetically run that exercise. You could only do 5 of them. Okay, what would the first 5 things be? Or if we look at the 50 things and here's what you want to achieve, what are the first 5 things that I should do? There's probably heaps of things that you could do, but there's some stuff that you can probably do later. There's some things that aren't very sensitive, that aren't going to move the needle that much. And then there's going to be other things that are going to move the needle a long way. That could be a range of different things, but you probably already know what they are. But if you go in with the philosophy of, okay, the first things first, I think a guy called Brian Tracy might have come up with this. If he didn't, then he would know who came up with it. But it's the idea of eat the frog. And essentially what it means is when you get into work or when you start the day, do the hardest things or do the first things first thing in the morning. Get in there, get it done. When I previously had a bigger accounting firm, one thing that I would always do every morning is everyone would need to document and talk through what they are going to do today. And that gave us the opportunity at that point to make some changes if there were some other things that they had to do first. We sometimes had situations where there would be certain things where they would have a number of things they could work on today. But there might be some very important things where I was able to provide some guidance to say, I don't care if you do anything else today, but this one thing here, we need that done. That's the most important thing to work on today. I don't care if you finish that and go home. That's how important it is. Those rest of those things, they could be done later this week. They can be done next week, next month. There's no rush on them. But what's the first thing that we need to do and focus on? The concept of thinking win-win, whether it's at home with your family, whether it's with your business partners, whether it's with your team, whether it's with a client, but especially when it's with something like a partner or a partnership or a joint venture or an alliance or a host beneficiary relationship or a collaboration with an influencer. Always think win-win. This is so important in partnerships. A lot of people struggle to grow because they don't have access to the things that they need, clients, time, resources. Well, other people do. Other people have heaps of time. We're relatively still in the world of COVID. A lot of people have lost their jobs. They're looking for new things to do, new initiatives, new employment, new sources of income. They've got time. If they've got a skill set, let's say they're a salesperson, and you aren't strong in sales, or you just have got so much sales activities you can't get to them, perhaps you can look at a way where you can partner with them. You don't have time, they have time. You need sales done, you can do sales, but you don't have the sales time to to do the sales, even though you know how to do it. They've got time and they know how to sales. Cool. How can we put in place a win-win agreement so you win, I win, and you win at the same time? If you need access to money, how can you partner with someone? Think win-win. They're not going to give you money for nothing. They're going to expect something from it. And if you get it, you can then go and buy the asset or buy more stock or move into the new factory or whatever the thing is that you need that you don't currently have because you don't have the money. Or the other one might be access to clients, or access to a client database, or access to promotion and so on. There's other people out there in businesses much bigger than you that have already got your ideal client. So how can we partner? What can we do together? What's a win-win situation we can put in place? An agreement, promotion, endorsement, and events, some activities that we can do together where we both win for it. I only heard this in the last week or two, but someone said this great line, which I'm going to do not a good job of rehashing here, but it was essentially, in some type of partnership, if it's too skewed towards someone getting too much or too less, it doesn't last long. And essentially what they meant by that was, if you've got an agreement or a partnership or a joint venture or an alliance where it's too skewed, one person is just getting too much compared to the other, it's going to fall over, because the other party are going to get upset, they're going to react, they're going to resent it, they're going to have... So how can we put win-win in place? And if it starts to get skewed, how can we then renegotiate or resettle it to move it more back to win-win? So it's not set in concrete, but how can we always think win-win? Number 5, this is a great one just in life, with your partner, with your children, with your friends, with your family, with your business partners, with clients, with team members, is seek first to understand, then to be understood. So I'm an accountant. I work with and I'm an advisor to a lot of business owners. And one of the most important things I need to do is I first need to understand the client and get in their shoes and see where they're coming from and what's going on in their head and in their world before I can understand. I received an email this morning where someone was questioning a whole lot of things and asking, did you just not consider this or think about it, and so on and so forth. But I had to take the position of first understanding where they were coming from. Now, thinking about it, reflecting on it, and looking between the lines, in this particular bit of advice that they're talking about, they don't understand the ins and outs of it. So a lot of things is a lack of education or a lack of understanding. This is particular advice that was given to them. And the reason they're questioning it is because they think these other things should have been considered, but they've got nothing to do with the advice and the calculation. And so I understand in that situation, they're not upset at me, or they don't think that I've been negligent in the advice that I've given. They just don't understand all the legislation and the framework and the advice and all the boring accounting stuff, right, that goes behind it. Because the thing they're questioning has got nothing to do with it. They just feel or assume it should have something to do with it, but it doesn't. And so they're not having a go at me. They're just saying, hey, I would have thought this would be included. So it gives you the opportunity to go, hey, I can see why you would think that, but it's actually got nothing to do with it. And here's how you calculate it. Another example there, which I've definitely had over the years, is you might have a client that's upset, and you could just assume that they are upset at you, but that's not always the case. If you first seek to understand, hey, what's going on with you? Is everything okay? They might just be having not a very good day. They might have trouble at home or in a relationship, or I don't know, they might have fallen off their bike or crashed their car, or they've got a sick family member, or there could be a million different issues. But it's important first to understand them before me or you reacting first, before we understand. This is so important. You would understand this with your spouse, with your family. If you just react to things before understanding, there can be confusion, and there then can be conflict, which could be easily remedied if we just understood what was going on first. If you're in business and you've got a team, you will 100% agree this. You can react and say, why are they acting, and why are they doing that, and why are they doing that, and why aren't they good enough, and why are they so slow, and why, as opposed to the situation of coming from a place of, I wonder why they did this, or I wonder why that, and then asking the question and uncovering, okay, well, perhaps I haven't given them an effective process. Perhaps they haven't had enough training. Perhaps this is the first time that they've ever done it. Perhaps my expectations are too high. Perhaps they've got other things going on, right? I think I've made my point here, but seek first to understand, then to be understood. Number 6 is synergize. Okay, so how can we get an outcome of 1 + 1 = 3? How can we come together where everyone's going to win? Whether this is especially important in partnerships. Okay, so how can you partner with someone where we both win? And what's the metric that we're going to track that? Is it going to be through leverage of time? Is it going to be increasing price? Is it improving average client group fee? Perhaps you're in e-commerce and you're partnering with someone where you can include their product as a bundle, or at the checkout it can be an upsell or a cross-sell. And so you've got the opportunity where someone's going to buy your product anyway, but we can also suggest that they look and partner and bundle this complementary product as well. And so we're going to get a 1 + 1 = 3 outcome there. So what are some synergies that you can look to put in place in your business? Number 7, a great one to finish on, is sharpen the sword. There's a great saying, may have been Abraham Lincoln, I'm just off the top of my head here, reflecting on this, which is, if I've got 7 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 5 hours sharpening the axe and then 2 hours cutting the tree. Do you see the logic there? As opposed to 7 hours cutting down a tree using a blunt axe, let's sharpen the axe, so the physical exertion then of chopping it down is going to be a lot less because our axe is razor sharp. How are you going to sharpen your saw or your axe? Is it through education? Is it through bringing in some external advisors? Is there a particular person that you need to hire? Is there a capability or a skill that we need to work on? And that's always focusing on how can we improve the business? How can we improve the people in the business? Perhaps you need to look to budget, put a budget aside as let's say a percentage of wages. Each person in the team is entitled to a certain amount to spend every year on professional or personal development. I think everyone always wants to get a little bit better, and so and especially as a business owner, it is a continuous learning journey as a business owner, especially if you're in a particular field, like accounting or legal fields or financial planning, etc., where not only are we running business and we're running teams and all the ins and outs of that, but you've then got the whole leadership side and your own personal values and beliefs and so on that needs work. But then the actual work as a practitioner, as a tax accountant or as a financial accountant or a management accountant or a commercial lawyer, you've got all the legislation and the standards and regulate and so on and so forth, where you need to be sharpening your sword to be a better advisor in those areas as well. So to finish up, there's a quick overview of the 7 habits of being highly effective. Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Look to put the first things first. Think win-win in a lot of different situations that come up. Seek first to understand, then be understood. It's super powerful, that one. Number 6 is look to synergize. What synergies can come from this relationship or this agreement or working together? Number 7, focus on sharpening the sword. So I hope that's been insightful for you. A bit of a shorter episode today on TurvilleTV, but I deem that necessary just to get the point across. If you want to know more about these 7 items that I've covered today, well, the logical place to go is to access the book and have a read through it. Even for myself, the reason why I wanted to put this together today, not only is it a great topic and did I want to get some of these ideas out there, they're not my ideas, they're Dr. Stephen Covey's ideas, but I also want to reflect on it because I'm not immune to this. We're all in the same boat together. And so I need to remind myself that, okay, how am I working towards and serving each of these 7 areas? And perhaps there's some that I need to focus on and work on a little bit as well as you, because we're all in business, we're all in life, we've all got blind spots, there's all things we need to work on. So I hope they're helpful. If one of those 7 things you find has been the most powerful for you, I'd love to know and hear about it. Feel free to reach out. That brings to the end this episode of TurvilleTV. I'm Brad Turville. I'll see you next time.